It's just chicken. Why can't we trust it? Simple, honest, the backbone of countless family dinners. Sounds wonderful and so comfortable, right? We trust it because it's chicken. Simple, honest, the backbone of countless family dinners. But what if that package hides birds packed wing to wing in filthy sheds, processed alongside rotting carcasses and fecal contamination, doused in chemicals to hide the smell? In just the last 2 years, 56 plants in 22 states, for example, serving giants like Purdue, Tyson, Costco, and H-E-B, were flagged for dangerous salmonella. And worse, now the USDA's pulled back a rule that could have forced recalls, meaning that the same contaminated chicken can still land on your plate. For older Americans already battling weakened immune systems, heart problems, or diabetes, one serving of tainted chicken isn't just a simple dinner, but a trip to the ER, another prescription to pay for, or a health setback you might never fully recover from. So why are these companies still cashing in, smiling from TV ads while playing roulette with your health? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Today, we expose 6 packaged chicken brands still flooding the market with products you may never want to feed your family again. Let's begin. Number 1. Tyson Foods, walking down the meat aisle in almost any American grocery store, and there it is, that familiar Tyson label. For years, it's been part of our kitchens, like the Sunday roast or the holiday turkey. You see it and think of safety, of family, of the meals you've served 100 times without question. It sits there like an old neighbor at the backyard barbecue, the kind you've known so long you stop wondering what they've really been up to. Tyson wants you to keep that picture in your head. Family farms glowing under a golden sunset, chickens roaming free, ranchers tipping their hats as if to say, "You can trust us." But the truth hiding behind that image isn't a sunny pasture. It's a cold, fluorescent-lit processing plant where trust is traded for speed and safety comes second. In the past 2 years, 56 poultry plants across 22 states, including several supplying Tyson, were flagged for dangerous salmonella contamination. Not the oops kind of mistake. Inspectors documented rotting carcasses on the line, fecal matter on equipment, and chemical baths masking decay instead of fixing it. And salmonella isn't the only shadow hanging over Tyson's name. Over the years, they've recalled chicken contaminated with listeria, bits of metal, even rubber. Each time the statement is the same: out of an abundance of caution, as if caution is some generous gesture, not the bare minimum we should expect. And while other countries draw the line, refusing to sell meat with this level of contamination, our own USDA has recently pulled back a rule that could have forced recalls on salmonella-tainted poultry, which means that the same chicken Europe or Canada might reject without hesitation is still showing up legally on American dinner plates. For older Americans, those already living with weakened immune systems, heart problems, or diabetes, one serving of contaminated chicken isn't just a bad meal. It's a gamble with stakes you can't afford to lose, like a midnight rush to the ER, weeks of recovery that drain your energy and your savings, or a decline in health you may never come back from. And yet, Tyson's ads keep rolling out the same polished scenes: endless green fields, spotless kitchens, smiling families gathered at the table. For people who've built a lifetime of trust in the food they bring home, that disconnect isn't just insulting, it's dangerous. And Tyson isn't some struggling underdog forced to cut corners to survive. This is one of the largest meat companies on the planet, with the money, the manpower, and the proof that they can do better. The same Tyson that supplies chicken to American school cafeterias, hospital kitchens, and senior facilities also produces a cleaner, higher standard product for export because overseas buyers demand it. In other words, they already know how to make safer food. They just choose not to make it the standard for their own neighbors. That's where the betrayal cuts the deepest. If safer processing is possible, why isn't it offered to everyone? Why should hormone-free, contamination-controlled poultry be a luxury you have to track down instead of the default for every family in this country? And what does it say about the value placed on our lives when the cleaner version of our dinner is shipped abroad, while our own plates are filled with the riskier cut? If you're tired of playing detective in the meat aisle, you still have a way forward. Look for brands that publish their contamination testing online or support local co-ops that work with small farms and open their practices to the public. When no antibiotics ever and no added hormones appear alongside verified third-party audits, it's not just marketing, it's a genuine layer of protection. And if you've got freezer space, buying directly from regional farms, sometimes in bulk, can put safer meat in your home for the same price or less than a supermarket sale. Tyson has been part of American kitchens for generations, but nostalgia won't protect you from bacteria, and loyalty won't keep you out of the hospital. The next time you see that familiar label, ask yourself, is this the neighbor I thought I knew, or just a stranger wearing a friendly face? Because at the end of the day, the choice is yours, and it starts with knowing the truth. Number 2, Purdue Farms. You see that bright blue and yellow Purdue label, and for a moment, it feels like the safe choice. This is the chicken that's been in American kitchens for generations. The one in all those commercials where Frank Purdue swore it took a tough man to make a tender chicken. They've built a brand on the promise of family farms, fresh air, and honest work. A picture so familiar that you stop questioning it. But peel it back, and the reality is a lot less charming. Purdue has faced USDA citations for unsanitary processing conditions. Birds packed so tight they can barely move. Fecal contamination on equipment, and chickens stored at unsafe temperatures. That alone is enough to make you think twice about what's landing on your plate every day. And yet the problems go even deeper than what's inside the package. Purdue Foods was fined for environmental violations at its Delaware plant. Phrases like incomplete records and mechanical failures that sound almost harmless until you realize they can mean untreated waste slipping straight into rivers and aquifers that towns have depended on for generations. In a country already struggling to keep its water drinkable, a corporation moving millions of pounds of poultry a week treating safety standards as optional is like tossing garbage into the village well and insisting everyone keep drinking. And then there's the way Purdue treats the very people who raise its chickens, a relationship they like to dress up as partnership in glossy brochures, but which in practice looks a lot more like a leash. Purdue, like the rest of the poultry giants, is accused of running a contract system so tight it could squeeze the air out of a steel pipe, dictating the breed of chicken, the feed, the medicine, the processing schedule, until the farmer is little more than a farmhand on his own land. They don't own the birds, they own the debt, often taking out six-figure loans to build and maintain facilities that match Purdue's ever-shifting specs, only to have their pay decided by a tournament system that pits neighbor against neighbor, turning small-town communities into zero-sum games where one farmer's gain is another's loss. Fall behind once, have a batch underperform, and you can watch months of work dissolve into a hole you can't dig out of. For many growers, it's not a business, it's a trap. You can't switch buyers because your barns were built to Purdue's blueprint. You can't get fair financing because you're too dependent on one customer. Some can't even qualify for government loans because by the technical definition, they're not independent farmers at all. Imagine spending 30 years working the land your father left you, only to realize you're just a tenant in a company town without the company housing. One phone call from a corporate, and you could lose the very farm your name is carved into. And here's the cruelest twist. The same Purdue that markets itself as family farm friendly Plastering images of smiling farmers and sunlit fields across every package is, if critics are to be believed, tightening the vice on the very families it claims to champion. They sell you the picture of the small-town farmer living the dream, while in reality, many of those farmers are buried in debt, shackled to contracts they can't escape, raising chickens in conditions they didn't choose, and wondering how the dream turned into a job they can't afford to quit. So the next time you see that Purdue label, remember, the story they tell isn't just yours as a consumer. It's also the story of farmers whose choices have been stripped away, and of communities dealing with the fallout of corporate shortcuts. If they can do better for their overseas buyers, if they can treat the land and the people with more respect, why isn't that the standard for everyone? Because when a company has the power to safeguard both the food on your table and the hands that put it there, but chooses not to, it's not just the chicken they've cheapened, it's the very worth they place on you. Number 3, Pilgrims Pride. You know what's funny? Pilgrims Pride calls itself feeding the nation, but somehow the only folks getting full are the ones cashing bonus checks in the corporate office. You've seen their commercials. Barns so clean you could eat off the floor, workers smiling like they just won the lottery, chickens strutting around like they've got their own health plan. It is a cute story, right? Out here in the real world, the only thing strutting is the company, walking over farmers, communities, and anyone unlucky enough to live downstream. Let's talk about those farmers for a second. Pilgrims call them partners. Sure, if by partner you mean someone who does all the work, takes all the risk, and gets paid just enough to stay desperate. They tell you when to raise, how to raise, what to feed, when to ship. And the birds? The company owns those. The farmer owns the debt. Hundreds of thousands sunk into barns built to Pilgrim specs. You miss one performance target, and suddenly you're not a farmer anymore. You're a contestant in a rigged game show, competing against your neighbor for scraps. And while these farmers are sweating over flock weights and electric bills, Pilgrims is cutting checks to settle lawsuits. $100 million here for keeping growers pay low, $41 million there for lying to investors. Guess that's the price of feeding the nation, right? Then there's the little hobby they have with the environment. Wastewater is dumped into rivers like it's confetti at a parade, except the parade is in your backyard and the confetti kills the fish. Families end up with higher water bills, fewer fish to catch, and a nice little reminder every time they turn on the tap that the company's profit margins matter more than their kids' summer swimming hole. Here's the kicker. Pilgrims know how to do it right. They already make cleaner, higher standard chicken for overseas buyers. That's right, folks. The good chicken flies across the ocean, and we get what's left. Makes you feel all warm and valued inside, doesn't it? Like finding out the family member who smiles at you at Christmas is the same one who's been stealing from your wallet all year. So the next time you grab that Pilgrim's Pride pack, maybe ask yourself, are you buying dinner or are you buying into the story they're selling? And if they can treat strangers halfway around the world better than the farmers down the road, what does that say about where you stand on their list of priorities? If that stings a little, you're not alone. We've all been there, trusting the brand, trusting the story, until the truth walks right up and kicks the door in. The only question left is, how many times are we going to keep setting the table for people who don't care if we eat? Number 4, Mountaire Farms. You know, in a lot of small towns across America, a chicken plant isn't just a business, it's part of the local heartbeat. The kind of place where parents work before their kids, where everyone knows someone who's with the plant. Mountaire likes to lean on that image. Hard-working folks, steady paychecks, and chicken that's feeding America. It's the sort of story that makes you feel good about buying a pack of drumsticks, like you're keeping a little piece of the community alive. But here's where the story starts smelling. Well, less like Sunday dinner and more like a swamp in July. Neighbors around some Mountaire facilities have complained for years about foul-smelling waste, polluted waterways, and air that makes you shut your windows on a breezy day. One Delaware plant even ended up in a legal settlement after residents claimed runoff had contaminated groundwater with nitrates, something that's been linked to serious health problems, including risks for infants. Imagine trusting the well water you've used for decades, only to learn it might be slowly poisoning your family. And then there's what happens inside those plants. Workers, almost all of them are immigrants or folks without a lot of job options, have described grueling conditions, processing lines so fast you can't blink, injuries brushed aside, bathroom breaks that feel like a privilege instead of a right. Mountaire's ads show clean kitchens and smiling employees in crisp uniforms. But behind the camera, it's a whole different picture. We've all seen enough to know that when a company runs on volume and speed, the people at the bottom pay the price first. What stings most is how the brand sells itself as neighbors helping neighbors, when some of those same neighbors are stuck breathing foul air, drinking questionable water, or working under conditions that wear a person down long before retirement. That's not just false advertising. That's betrayal with a smile. So the next time you pass that familiar logo in the grocery store, ask yourself if a company can be part of a community for decades, but still leave its people coughing, hurting, and wondering what's in their water. Do they really deserve your table or just your side eye? Number 5, Foster Farms. If you live on the West Coast, the name Foster Farms probably feels like part of the landscape. Their ads play like a postcard from a dream farm, chickens roaming under the California sun, a smiling farmer by a white picket fence, and a confident voiceover promising, locally grown, locally loved. Sounds like a brand you can trust until you look at their record and realize that love sometimes comes with a side of deadly bacteria. Back in 2013 and 2014, Foster Farms was at the center of one of the largest salmonella outbreaks in U.S. history. Nearly 650 people sick across 29 states. CDC reports showed that some of the salmonella strains in this outbreak were resistant to multiple antibiotics, making treatment even harder. And while the situation was serious enough for the USDA to issue public warnings, Foster Farms kept those implicated plants running for months before finally pausing to sanitize. To put it in perspective, this wasn't one bad batch that slipped through. It was weeks' worth of production hitting store shelves even after federal officials sounded the alarm. Consumers got sick, but the company moved quickly to protect its image, rolling out safety commitment statements and shiny new ad campaigns. Here's the kicker. They never outright denied the problem, but framed it as something they had already addressed for the customer's benefit. Meanwhile, government reports painted a different picture. Plants flagged for poor sanitation, overworked processing lines, and inconsistent quality control. Then there's what happened to the people working inside those plants. Foster Farms workers, many in California's Central Valley, where jobs are scarce, have described lines moving so fast they cause injuries, with some workers pressured to return before they'd healed. When COVID-19 hit, Foster Farms plants became hotspots for massive outbreaks, with hundreds infected and several deaths. Instead of shutting down to protect workers, some facilities only slowed production temporarily and kept going, citing the need to maintain the national food supply. But let's be honest, what food is worth more than a human life? The real problem here isn't just a few contaminated shipments or a handful of illnesses. It's a bigger, uglier truth, a system that values output and profit over the health of both the people eating the food and the people making it. Foster Farms still markets itself as part of the California community, but if you ask the families who've seen loved ones in the hospital from salmonella, or the workers who lost friends to COVID-19, you'll hear a very different story. So the next time you see locally grown stamped across a package of Foster Farms chicken, remember, local doesn't mean safe, and loved doesn't mean respected. Sometimes it just means the problem is growing right in your own backyard. Number 6, Cayam Foods chicken sausage. Some brands weave themselves so quietly into our lives that we forget they're even there, until they remind us in the worst way possible. For a lot of American families, Cayam is one of those brands. They're not as flashy as Tyson, they're not running loud commercials like Foster Farms, but come baseball season, football season, or just a backyard barbecue, you'll spot them. A pack of chicken sausage sitting on the counter, ready to hit the grill. And who would ever think that the thing tucked inside a hot dog bun could be the reason your whole family spends the week laid up? The trouble is, Cayam hasn't always kept their chicken as safe as you'd expect. In recent years, recalls have made customers think twice. Plastic bits in the meat, potential bacterial contamination. You know, the kind of bonus nobody asked for. It's like a bad punchline. You buy chicken sausage but get packaging fragments or a stomach bug as a free gift. And every time it happens, the press release sounds the same. Out of an abundance of caution, as if caution is some kind of gift they're generously bestowing, not the bare minimum they should have been practicing from day one. But this isn't just about a few bad batches. The real problem is that chicken sausage like this has become a go-to meal for a lot of older households. Folks who don't have the time or energy for elaborate cooking, who just want something easy, affordable, and healthier than beef franks. Yet when the meat inside might be a mashup from multiple sources with additives and preservatives that other countries have banned, healthier turns out to be just a label meant to make you feel safe until you're not. And here's the part that really sticks. Cayam still sells the image of the all-American family gathered together. Kids laughing, adults chatting, chicken sausage sizzling on the grill. But in many working-class communities, where Cayam is a primary supplier, those cookouts have taken a different turn. Someone lands in the ER with an allergic reaction to an additive. Someone else ends up battling foodborne illness. You could call it rare, but when it happens often enough, it stops being rare. The irony? Cayam can do better. They already produce no nitrates and no artificial preservatives lines for high-end markets and exports. Proving higher standards aren't impossible. But like so many food companies, they save those standards for someone else, while the folks here at home get the regular version. It's like being invited over for steak and being handed yesterday's deli meat with a smile and a still good, right? So next time you're about to toss a Cayam chicken sausage on the grill, ask yourself, will this backyard party end in laughter or a medevac? Because in a country that can send a rover to Mars, there's no excuse for chicken sausage that still contains stuff your doctor told you to avoid back in the 80s. So the next time you're in that grocery aisle and buy the delicious chicken, remember what you've seen here today. Don't just feed your family, protect them. And if you're ready to dig deeper into what's really on our plates, hit subscribe, share this video, and help someone else dodge the next surprise ingredient big food tries to sneak past us.
Thanks a lot for sticking with us to the very end. If you found this video useful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss any daily uploads. And now go ahead and explore some of our top recommended videos popping up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.